Chapter 53. Alice cheered mentally as she saw a vision of Bella and Emmett arm-wrestling at the table.
"Teach him a lesson."
"Not brilliant, Emmett," I said, reaching out to take Renesmee from Bella. She would need her hands free. She glanced at me in confusion, and I winked, letting her know I had a plan. I slid my hands under Nessie and folded her soft body into my arms. "What do you mean?" Emmett asked suspiciously. I knew just how to get a rise out of him. "It's a little dense, don't you think, to antagonize the strongest vampire in the house?" Emmett laughed loudly. "Please, strongest my ass." "Bella," I said softly, but clearly loud enough for Emmett to hear. "Do you remember a few months ago I asked you to do a favor for me once you were immortal?" Bella's face clouded for a moment as she struggled to shift through human memories. Then suddenly her eyes brightened.
"Oh,"
she gasped. Alice's vision shifted, clearly showing Bella easily slamming Emmett's hand into the table, a stunned look on his face. She burst out laughing. Jasper, Carlyle, and Esme watched, looking slightly perplexed, as Jacob appeared from the kitchen. "What's so funny?" Emmett glared at Alice for a moment, and then looked back at me. "What?" he growled.
"Really?"
asked Bella. I could see the doubt in her eyes that her strength could possibly match Emmett's. I smiled. Forget match it. She would exceed it. "Trust me." She nodded, taking a deep breath and turning to Emmett.
"Emmett, how do you feel about a bed?"
"Sweet." Few things made Emmett happier than a bed. He jumped up. "Awesome! Bring it!" Rosalie stood up quickly next to him, putting her hands on her hips.
"Don't get him started, Edward."
I ignored her. Bella was looking nervous again, biting her lip. "Unless you're too afraid," Emmett taunted. "The girl's not fool enough to take me on." Bella's eyes flashed, and she stiffened, pointing a finger at him.
"You, me, arm wrestling. Dining room table, now."
"Excellent!" Emmett grinned widely, and his eyes met mine for a second. "Hope you don't mind your woman getting her ass kicked, my brother." Alice shifted nervously, surveying her vision, which showed Esme's much-loved dining room table smashed to splinters.
"Esme will kill us." Bella? I think Esme is fairly fond of that table. It's an antique."
Esme's eyes widened in realization.
"Oh my. Thanks,"
she mouthed silently to Alice. "No problem," said Emmett with a smile. Alice's vision moved to the large boulder behind the garage. "Right this way, Bella." Emmett turned and headed out the back. I took Bella's hand, squeezing it, and we followed with the rest of the family, with even Jacob trailing along. Renesmee placed her hand on my face, replaying the exchange in my mind, confused and questioning. "You'll see in a minute," I whispered, and kissed the top of her head. She pressed into me, sighing quietly. Emmett reached the stone and bent his arm, placing his elbow against the granite surface. His eyes glittered with anticipation at Bella, and he waved her to come closer. "Prepare for defeat." Bella paused a couple of feet away, looking uncertain. Her eyes flickered for a moment between Emmett's unnaturally bulging biceps to her own arms.
"Come on, Bella,"
Alice pleaded, as she temporarily lost the vision.
"You can do this."
Suddenly, Bella smoothed her expression and bent her arm against the boulder. "Okay, Emmett," she growled, her face serious. "I win, and you cannot say one more word about my sex life to anyone, not even Rose. No allusions, no innuendos, no nothing." Emmett looked at her appraisingly. "Deal. I win, and it's gonna get a lot worse. And you ain't seen nothing yet, kid." His grin grew as Bella froze in dismay. "You gonna back down so easy, little sister?" Emmett widened his eyes innocently. "Not much wild about you, is there? I bet that cottage doesn't have a scratch. Did Edward tell you how many houses Rose and I smashed? And 10 times as many beds." Bella's eyes narrowed to crimson slits, and she ground her teeth. She grabbed his hand. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. I felt a slight pang of anxiety as Emmett shoved against Bella's hand with all his strength, wanting to take her down quickly. But her hand didn't move. "What the—" Emmett's face twisted in confusion and shock, and he shifted so he could bear even more force down on Bella's arm. Nothing. "Damn it! What the hell? No damn way I'm losing this! She is not stronger than me!" His face creased under the strain, and yet there was no movement of Bella's hand. I relaxed, pleased.
"Oh, this is so much fun,"
thought Alice with delight, exchanging a smile with Jasper.
5 more seconds before she puts him in his place.
Jacob was watching open-mouthed. He was well aware of Emmett's strength from our battle with the newborns. He found it almost impossible to equate Bella's physical power with the girl he had known. "Damn," he thought. Bella was staring at her arm and Emmett's with a slightly surprised expression. Her muscles were relaxed, and I didn't think she was even applying any pressure. Then her eyes narrowed, and her muscles twitched slightly, pushing Emmett's arm back an inch. She laughed in delight. "No!" Emmett snarled in fury and frustration.
"Just keep your mouth shut,"
Bella said sweetly, and she smashed Emmett's hand into the rock. A fissure opened up under their hands, and a portion of the rock fell off, slamming into Emmett's foot. He looked down with furious surprise. "Damn it!" I choked back laughter, pressing my face into Renesmee's hair to try to muffle the sound. Alice jumped up and down, clapping her hands.
"You go, girl!"
"This is bullshit!" Emmett launched the rock off his foot and across the river, where it smashed through one tree before knocking down 2 others. "It was a fluke! I wasn't ready!" He turned to glare at me. "You tricked me!" I couldn't hold back my laughter at this. Esme looked at the downed trees unhappily, while Carlyle patted her arm. Nessie's hand shot up to my neck, and she replayed Emmett's outburst several times, with a mixture of confusion and amusement. Emmett whirled on Bella. "Rematch! Tomorrow!" Bella blinked innocently.
"It's not going to wear off that fast,"
she said.
"Maybe you ought to give it a month."
Emmett growled. "In your dreams, baby." "Tomorrow," he snarled.
"Hey, whatever makes you happy, big brother."
Emmett turned, punching the boulder, creating a spray of crushed rock, before charging back towards the house.
"Oh, real mature,"
thought Rosalie with irritation. She turned and glared at me.
"Thanks for nothing, Edward. Now I have to listen to him sulk all night."
She stalked away after Emmett, and I quickly got out of her mind as she began to formulate plans to help him feel better. I had a feeling he'd be happy soon enough. There was a loud grating noise, and I turned quickly to see Bella pulverizing a handful of rock with a delighted look on her face. "Cool," she said quietly, and then whirled in a blinding circle and smashed the rock with the side of her other hand. There was a sharp crack, and the rock fell apart into 2 pieces. "Nice," thought Jasper, smiling and nodding. Bella began to giggle, pulling back her arm and punching one of the halves, splintering it into several pieces. She spun again and kicked at the other half, smashing it into another dozen small pieces. One flew past Jacob's head, and he had to duck. "Now she's really lost it," he thought with a chuckle. Further up the lawn, Rose and Em had stopped to watch. "Show off," Emmett grumbled, and then grinned. I watched with pleasure as exhilaration filled Bella's face, her laughter elated, as she stomped and kicked and punched, clearly reveling in the abandon of letting her strength flow through her limbs. She was a sleek and graceful vision of destruction, and I drank her in. So long I had feared Bella would hate me if she ever became one of us, hate me for making her a monster like myself. Seeing her joy in this moment was a balm for many agonizing moments of indecision and apprehension. I remembered Jacob's words from earlier. I only ever want her to be happy. This was all I had ever wanted for Bella. To see laughter, delight, and happiness in her face, although I had often not known how to create it. Renesmee squirmed in my arms, chortling quietly. Bella suddenly jumped, somersaulted twice in the air, and came down, smashing the few remaining bits of rock into dust under her feet. Nessie drew in a quick breath of surprise, and then suddenly she laughed. Not the bubbly giggles of infanthood we had heard from her before, but a high, clear, almost adult peal of laughter that echoed around us.
"Mommy, funny!"
I looked at her in amazement as this new sound left her lips. There was a sudden silence, and I glanced up to see Bella staring.
"Did she just laugh?"
she asked, her eyes wide. "Yes," I murmured with a smile. Jasper had been enjoying the flow of emotions coming from Bella, happiness and pleasure. Now, almost instinctively, he reached out from behind me and touched Nessie's arm, absorbing her pure, innocent joy. "Ah," he thought with a contented smile, basking in the emotion. Standing next to him, Alice squeezed him around the waist with her small arm, pleased to see him so happy. "Who wasn't laughing?" Jake rolled his eyes. "Considering the production you were putting on." Like he doesn't understand the thrill of new power. "Tell me you didn't let go a bit on your first run, dog," I said, raising my eyebrows. "That's different," said Jacob, giving me a light punch on the shoulder. "Hey, I'm just kidding, remember?" He smiled. "Bella's supposed to be a grown-up, married and a mom and all that. Shouldn't there be a little more dignity?" Nessie touched my face, replaying the scene of Bella pulverizing the stone several times, slightly insistent. Her message was clear.
"More!" "What does she want?"
asked Bella anxiously. I grinned. "Less dignity. She was having almost as much fun watching you enjoy yourself as I was."
"Am I funny?"
Bella smiled brightly at Nessie, flitting over and taking her from my arms. She gave her a small slice of rock from her hand.
"Do you want to try?"
Carlyle stepped forward slightly, interested in this test of Nessie's strength. His mind did a quick calculation of the pressure per centimeter necessary to crush the stone. Nessie smiled, teeth bright, and squeezed the rock in her small palm, her face creasing with exertion. She opened her hand. She had ground the rock down slightly, but it was still intact. Fascinating, Carlyle thought, already cataloging other substances he would present her with to see how her strength compared with ours. Nessie held up the stone to Bella.
"I'll get it,"
she said, taking the stone between her thumb and forefinger and pressing it into sand. Nessie clapped her hands, laughing loudly again, and everyone smiled. Suddenly, heat bathed over me. I glanced up to see the sun move out of the clouds, its rays slicing through the brilliant red-orange sky of sunset. I moved my eyes down slowly to the vision beside me. Bella glittered, 1,000 diamond sunsets, iridescent loveliness of every discernible color. I let the crystal beauty of her skin blind me with pleasure for a moment. I had seen the skin of my kind in the light of the sun countless times before, seen my own skin reflect the golden rays. But with Bella, it was different somehow. Everything was new and more intense and more beautiful with her. Nessie touched Bella's face, filling her mind with a comparative vision of her slightly luminescent skin against Bella's brilliance. There was something of an envious edge to the thought, and an acknowledgment and yet question of the contrast. I felt a flash of worry as I realized that the differences between herself and her parents were beginning to quickly gather in Nessie's mind. As advanced as she was, it might be a while before she grasped the idea that those precious, irreplaceable human traits belonged to a part of her mother that she had only known in the womb.
"You're the prettiest,"
Bella said reassuringly. "I'm not sure I can agree to that," I said with a smile. Their beauty was of equal miracle. Bella turned to me as if to speak, but fell silent, merely holding my eyes. Too weird." Jacob held up his hand, as if to ward off the glow. "Freaky, Bella." Alice narrowed her eyes.
"She's gorgeous,"
she thought. "What an amazing creature she is," I said softly in agreement. We all watched in silence as Bella regarded her shining arms, her crimson eyes reflecting the shimmering colors with a dozen facets of red. Finally, Jacob moved, kicking at the ground nervously. "Well," he said with forced casualness, glancing at me, "I think I'll take off for a while. Swing by the Clearwaters and make sure Charlie's doing all right." He frowned suddenly, thinking he probably should have warned Billy and Sue in advance that Charlie was now in on the secret.
"I'd really appreciate that,"
Bella said earnestly. "But I'll be back in a few hours," he responded quickly, a desperate tone creeping into his voice. "I'll run the woods," he thought, looking at me. Then he turned his eyes to Nessie, and she held out a small hand towards him. He leaned forward, and she touched his neck, filling his mind with a memory of walking along the river with him. "Tomorrow," he said. "I promise." He took her hand from his neck and gave it a squeeze before letting it go. "Good night, Ness."
"Jacob,"
she thought with affection, flashing brilliant teeth.
"Bye, Jake,"
Bella said. He smiled broadly at her. Bye." He glanced around at my family. "See ya." "Take care, Jacob," said Carlyle. We all murmured goodbye, except Rose. He turned and ran up the slope and disappeared around the house. Off to the side in the forest, there was a snap of branches and a flash of fur. Leah was moving to meet him. Jasper suddenly shifted next to me, his focus on Bella, as he felt a sudden burn of thirst. I turned to see Bella touching her throat anxiously. I bent close to her ear. "Time to hunt again?" I asked in a quiet voice.
Oh,
Alice clapped her hands.
let's all go together.
Bella frowned.
We can't bring Renesmee,
she said, her voice slightly panicky as she clutched the baby. Esme stepped forward with a smile.
Carlyle and I will be happy to stay with Renesmee.
Her eyes were alight with the prospect of having Nessie to herself.
Please, you kids go and have fun.
Bella glanced at me, and I nodded, smiling reassuringly. She handed Nessie to Esme, and everyone smiled with pleasure. Jasper was particularly anxious to hunt, after a long day bathed in Charlie's scent. Even Emmett brightened, moving closer. "Hunting? Great idea." He grinned at Bella. "Maybe it will finally bring out the animal in you."
Hey!
She punched his shoulder, and he winced.
You lost that bet. No more comments.
Rose came up behind him.
Yeah, time to shut up, Emmett.
She grabbed his hand and pulled.
Come on.
We all turned and ran, flying across the lawn together, Bella quickly pulling in front.
Bella!
Alice called. Bella slowed and Alice grabbed her hand. They jumped the river together, Alice pulling Bella into a synchronized somersault halfway over. Behind us, I could hear a shriek of delight from Nessie. The rest of us jumped at random intervals, nothing but the soft brush of air as we landed. I reclaimed Bella's hand from Alice, and we ran together for a few moments. But soon she pulled ahead, chasing Emmett into the trees, where they taunted each other, launching branches to try to knock the other down. Alice and Jasper disappeared somewhere off to the side together, while Rose stayed out in front. Finally, Bella appeared like an arrow in front of me.
Where are we going?
She asked. You'll see, I grinned. Everyone was automatically heading towards a large boulder at the foot of the hills that we called the Rock, our normal launching off spot for any group hunt. Bella broke out in front again, and I ran beside her before catching her hand and pulling her gently to a stop as the large stone rose out of the forest in front of us.
Wow,
she exclaimed. Rose appeared out of the forest, running past us and climbing straight up to the top, some 20 feet above. Alice and Jasper slipped through the trees, pausing beside us. Then Emmett burst out from behind them, leaving bent and trampled branches in his wake, and scrambled up to the top of the rock. He grabbed Rose, bent her over backwards, and kissed her before throwing his head back with a roar. "I am Vampire! Hear me roar!" he bellowed.
Idiot,
Rose scoffed.
Get off me, Em.
She straightened, giving him a shove.
Stop acting like an animal.
He slapped her on the bottom. Oh, come on, babe. You know you love it. Alice and Jasper were laughing. Jasper grabbed Alice around the waist, lifting her off her feet and biting her lightly on the neck. She shrieked and kicked wildly. Bella was watching my siblings with interest, her eyes bright with excitement, and some surprise in her expression. I realized she had never truly seen my brothers and sisters in a totally relaxed, carefree form. Something Carlyle had always schooled us on was that one of the keys to successful, safe interaction with humans was physical, and most importantly, emotional moderation. Our dangerous, instinctive nature was provoked by scent and thirst, but it could also be triggered by any extreme emotion, anger, despair, excitement. I had, of course, learned to show all of my true self to Bella long ago. I had to. But my siblings, even though they were mostly comfortable being themselves around Bella, had remained somewhat restrained in her presence, under the advice of Carlyle. This ability to finally let go and be himself around Bella was particularly freeing for Jasper, who had now slung Alice over his shoulder while she giggled and beat him on the back. Emmett was murmuring quietly into Rose's ear above us. Glancing at Bella, I was suddenly hit by the very boyish thrill that for once I was not the tag-along with two couples on this hunting trip. I was not on the outside. I was not alone. I had my own mate with me. My wife, I thought with giddy satisfaction. Feeling exhilarated, I grabbed Bella suddenly to kiss her. Too suddenly. Surprised, her hand shot out defensively, hitting my chest and sending me flying several feet backwards, where I landed hard in a sitting position on the ground. There was a moment of stunned silence as my siblings turned to stare, and then everyone around me, except Bella, burst out laughing. Emmett jumped down from the rock next to me, howling with laughter. "That was awesome, Bella," he choked out. "High five." He held up his hand, which Bella looked at in horror for a second, before turning back to me.
Edward,
"Oh, he's fine, Bella," Emmett said. He grabbed me under the shoulders, trying to haul me up. "See if you can do it again." I shook him off irritably and stood up by myself, trying to cover my embarrassment. I reached out, slowly this time, taking Bella in my arms. She still looked stunned. "It's all right, sweetheart," I laughed lightly. "I was asking for it."
"Yes, but—"
she stammered. "Don't sweat it, Bella," said Jasper. "None of us can ever get the upper hand on him. It's been a long time coming." "Yeah, Bella," said Emmett. "And who would have guessed that you like it rough?" Bella twisted in my arms to glare at him. "Emmett," she said in a warning voice. Rose jumped down, still laughing.
"Come on, let's hunt."
We took off in a group again. Jasper and I scouted on the outside, searching for mountain lion, but none were around. Bella caught a scent, and we followed her to a large clearing filled with a herd of elk. We stood silently together, just within the trees.
"Ugh,"
whispered Bella.
"I really wish they smelled better."
Jasper grinned. "I'm totally with you on that one, Bella."
"Complaints, complaints,"
Alice muttered.
"I see you both enjoying it just fine."
"Well," Emmett said from behind us, "last one in is a rotten egg." And then he was flying over us, landing in the middle of the herd, and yelling, "Boo!" The elk screamed with terror and scattered. Watching them flee immediately triggered all of my instincts, narrowing my vision as a rush of flame shot up my throat. I went for a large buck when I heard Emmett yell, "Edward, catch!" Seeing his thoughts, I whipped my head around just as he launched an elk right at me. I caught it easily, breaking its spine and emptying it in a moment, the hot blood, as always, inexplicably and imperfectibly cooling the blaze in my throat. "Grow up," I yelled at Emmett. He grinned back, an elk in either hand. I whirled, looking for Bella. She was on the ground again, gripping a struggling buck. One already lay dead beside her. I grabbed one more elk, draining it quickly, and then jogged over to her. She looked up at me from the now still elk, and then shook her head and rolled her eyes.
"Perfectly clean, again,"
she muttered.
"And you're a perfect mess again,"
complained Alice, coming up behind us. Jasper was just inside the borders of the forest, draining his third carcass. He preferred to feed on his own, out of sight. Alice reached out a hand and pulled Bella to her feet, shaking her head. Bella's white shirt was smeared with dirt and blood, and her jeans were ripped.
"You, me, closet, now."
"Alice," I said sternly. "Tomorrow." She huffed and crossed her arms.
"I'm going to hold you to that."
She caught a vision of a sullen Bella, dressed in a golden sundress, and standing before her in the cottage closet, and smiled.
"That's better."
Her thirst sated, Bella's face suddenly creased with worry.
"I want to get back to Renesmee,"
she said. "Of course, love,"
"I'll grab Jazz,"
said Alice, spinning and heading into the forest. "It was fun watching you finally get dirty, Bella," said Emmett. She whirled to swing at him, but he had already darted away, grabbing Rose's hand and taking off into the forest. I lifted Bella's hand, kissing her fingers, and then we started back towards home. I wish we had had more time to go further into the mountains. There was so much I wanted to show her, so many places I wanted to take her. "You have all of eternity, you fool," I thought to myself. Time, finally, was no longer hanging over us. During Bella's pregnancy, time had been a black evil, inching unstoppably towards seeming death. Now, the curse was lifted, and there was so much I wanted to do with her, to do for her. Thinking of that dark time, I was reminded of one of Bella's wishes as she lay fading away.
"I wish we could have visited the meadow again."
"Another day," she had said, although at the time hopelessness had forsaken that a new day would ever arrive. But now, miraculously, it had.
"Fantastic idea!"
Alice chimed in mentally from ahead of me, seeing my plan.
"Don't worry, we'll go on ahead."
I smiled, suddenly excited. "Bella," I said, pulling her gently to a stop. She paused, looking at me questioningly. "Do you remember, when you were sick, you wanted to visit the meadow again?" Her face clouded temporarily as she searched her thoughts.
"Yes,"
she said tentatively. I smiled wider. "Well, it's about 3 minutes from here." She looked startled. She turned her head, staring in the direction of the house.
"But Renesmee."
I reached out and touched her cheek. "We'll be fine with her grandparents for a little longer, and Rose will be home soon." Bella's face creased for a moment, and then relaxed. She turned towards me, a happy anticipation dancing in her eyes. I held out my hand. "Shall we?"